G'day, Andrew Demack is my name. I work for Bicycle Queensland. We're putting together this little video to demonstrate how to get your bike ready to go on Cycle Queensland, how to get it into a bike box. So this video is to be in conjunction with our instructions on the website on the info sheet. The info sheet is called How to Pack Your Bike and Luggage for CQ. If you go to the Bicycle Queensland website, bq.org.au, you'll be able to find that under the Cycle Queensland section of the website. So once you've had a look at this video, when you actually go to do the job yourself, it'd be a good idea to have the info sheet with you. You can follow the instructions there after you've seen me do it or not do it to demonstrate. So basically we're going to go through the steps required to get your bike into the bike box. And we're going to try and sort of do it in a way that minimises the number of things that we need to take off the bike. The bike still ends up with the rear wheel intact. We take the front wheel off, we're going to move the handlebars, we'll take the seat out, and we're going to take the pedals off. So the box we need to do this job with, here's a Bicycle Queensland one, and here's one that I accessed from a local bike shop. The Bicycle Queensland one you can get from us for a small fee. You'll probably get a bike box from a bike shop though for free, and that's probably free is better than a fee. On the way back from Cycle Queensland you'll probably use one of ours because they're the ones we supply at the end of the event. You'll see the Bicycle Queensland one is slightly wider than a standard one. That's to get a greater variety of bikes in. And from your bike shop you'll be able to find there's a variety of sizes of bike boxes available. It's a good idea, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before Cycle Queensland, to take your bike to the local bike shop to be serviced, to give them a good chance to give it a once-over before the event. And while you're there, you might ask them about getting a bike box. Usually that would be free because they have bike boxes they need to dispose of on a regular basis. All the new bikes that come into the shop come in a box, and they usually have to send those out for recycling. You'll also be able to get hold of at your local bike shop one of these plastic spacers for the forks, to protect the forks, and probably also a lot of the bike shops will have the sort of wrapping, the foam wrapping that they wrap the tubes of new bikes in, and they'll be throwing a lot of that sort of stuff away as well. So you should be able to get that sort of protective packing material for your bike at your local bike shop for free. So what do we need for this job? Obviously we need the box, we need the bike. Probably need a pedal spanner, or if your pedals don't have a flat section on them, probably an 8mm Allen key. These pedals do have a flat section. It's a 15mm flat, so just a normal 15mm spanner would do the job entirely adequately, but the extra leverage that you get from a proper pedal spanner is not a bad thing to have. Depending on your bike, 4, 5 and 6mm Allen keys are probably the ones we're going to use the most often. So let's start by taking our pedals off. Left and right pedals on a bicycle. The right pedal is a standard thread, the left pedal is a left-hand thread. The reason for that, of course, is so that the pedaling action of the bicycle doesn't actually undo the pedals. If the left-hand thread of the pedal was a standard thread, your left-hand pedal would actually fall off eventually, and so that's why that design exists. The trick when removing the pedals from your bike is that we always have the pedal spanner at the back of the pedal and go down. So for both sides, when we remove our pedals, it's simply a matter of finding the flat in the right position. There, and then if your pedals have been on your bike for a very long time, this will be difficult. For this bike it won't be all that difficult. There we go, just a sharp movement, and then keep undoing it. By the way, I am no sort of professional mechanic. I'm just an average person. Any difficult repairs on my bike I take to the bike shop. We decided not to use a professional mechanic for this video to demonstrate that just average riders can do this sort of stuff quite easily. As we remove the pedals from our bike, they'll be going into the bike box with everything else. It's a good idea to have a little plastic bag to put them in. You don't want the individual pedals rattling around inside the bike box. The left hand one, of course, is the left-hand thread, but the same thing applies. So the spanner goes on towards the back and a sharp movement down. That one's very loose, and then just undo it. And believe it or not, for most bikes, that was actually the most difficult bit. To remember that you have to have the left-hand thread. And for most of the bikes that participants on Cycle Queensland have, removing the pedals will be one of the more difficult parts of the operation. So the pedal spanner I don't need anymore. I'm going to use my 5 and 6mm Allen keys for the next few things. The main difficulty with getting a bike in the bike box has to do with the handlebars, and we will find out as we go to put this one in that I do need to remove the handlebars. Because it's an older style bicycle, this is one I've had for about 15-18 years, it's got a stem, a quill stem, and the quill stem has an expander bolt inside it, so removing this style of stem is a bit more complicated than most modern bikes. We have a faceplate on the front of the stem, and we can just remove that faceplate. I've got one, I'll show you how you do that in a few minutes' time. But for mine, we'll need to remove the seat, and we'll need to remove the handlebars. The seat, I think, is a 5mm Allen key. We'll find out if I'm right. Yes, I am right. It's a good idea if your seat has been in the bike for a very long time. This might be hard to get out, but it's also a good idea to maybe mark that with some tape so that our current position of our seat, that we can replicate that when we put the bike back together at the other end. So a bit of tape around here at this point will be a useful thing later on, because then when we reinsert the seat post, we'll know how far in it should go, because seat post is a reasonably long item. Your seat post is going to go into the bike box as well, and usually the seat post will have grease or dirt or whatever, things that you don't want to come into contact with the rest of your bike. So it's a good idea to grab a rag, just wrap the rag around the seat post, and probably get a bit of tape and secure that on so that the seat post, the dirty end of the seat post, isn't coming into contact with the rest of the bike. Now, that was easy, so let's do the slightly harder one, which is getting the handlebars off. We'll do that on my bike, and then we'll take a quick break and I'll show you on another bike, the more modern version. At this point, it may seem to you that I start to look more worried. Okay, that's only because it's true. So these old style quill stems, you sort of wind them out, and when my dad first showed me this when I was about 14, he used a block of wood and he tapped it with a hammer. Now, I've got a plastic hammer here today, so it should not be necessary. In fact, because I've taken it off once already today, it might come out without the tapping required. We'll see. No, it needs a tap. So that bolt on the stem is now quite loose, but because of the way the expander bolt works in the head tube, it needs to be released. There we go. Now, the thing I should have done before I started to remove that, now I can't do it, yes I can, good, is to take the brake cable out. Now, that's the expander bolt with the stem. We're just going to fold that down into our frame, and things starting to get a little bit messy to deal with, because we're now actually going to take our front wheel off. If we took the front wheel off first before doing the handlebar would be really messy to deal with, because the front wheel, the forks would be down on the ground. So we'll see if we can hold all this together while removing the front wheel. I'll probably, if I take off my honker hooter, it'll be less entertaining, but it'll probably work better. Okay, so now we see the handlebars should try and sit in something like that, and our bicycle will hopefully go into our bike box at this point. and it does. If your bike is bigger than my bike, so mine's a medium-sized sort of bike, if your bike is a really large frame, just check with your local bike shop about the different size boxes that they have available to you. You may, if you have large tyres, want to deflate the tyres. You don't need to do that for any reasons that they're going to explode, but just simply it'll help the bike fit in better. The skewer, we remove the quick release skewer from the front wheel and put it in with the bag with the pedals. Then we make the front wheel a bit narrower for when it goes into the bike box as well. So that'll help things as well. So if we just make sure we find that little bag, skewer can go in there, and that way all the things that we're looking for later on we'll know where they are when we start reassembling the bike at the far end. That's pretty much all the difficult bits. The front wheel is just going to go into the box like that. The seat post is also going to go into the box. There's plenty of room inside a bike box. It's a fairly roomy one. And so you can think of other things that you might need to bring with you on Cycle Queensland that you can pack into your bike box at the time that you're boxing up your bike that you won't need for a few days before you get to CQ. Your bike shoes, I'd actually put them in a bag and wrap them up inside a plastic bag. Your bike helmet, and all of these things, anything you put into your bike box at this stage for Cycle Queensland isn't going to be counted in your luggage allowance later on, so it's not a bad idea to think of those sorts of things. Other things you might put in there would be accessories that you have on your bike, so perhaps your lights and your pump, and your saddlebag that has a spare tube in it, those sorts of things. So that's pretty much the demonstration of how to disassemble that particular bike. Obviously at this stage then it's easy enough to seal up. The BQ box has enormous amounts of space to write your name. When we get to the destination for Cycle Queensland, there will be hundreds and hundreds of bike boxes. If your bike box looks exactly the same as everybody else's, it will take you a long time to find your bike. So I suggest writing your name in the largest letters you possibly can on every single surface of the bike box, because they'll be all lined up and you won't be able to see necessarily the long side of the bike box as you're going down the aisles looking for your particular bike box. So put your name as big as you can on every single surface, and that's why it's marked like that on our BQ bike box, but it won't be marked like that on one you get from the bike shop. Okay, we'll just stop the camera for a second. I'll bring the other bike in and I'll show you how to remove the handlebar on that one. There are quite a few different ways that the bicycles are put together these days, but this is a really common arrangement, and whether it's a flat bar road bike or a mountain bike, or in fact most modern mountain bikes, it's likely that you have a faceplate like this. You have take one of the bolts out. Okay, that one's out. That one's out. It's quite a good idea before you do this. I haven't done it on this bike, but to mark with like liquid paper or something like that the angle of the handlebar, because you want to repeat that position. I realise my hands are obscuring what I'm doing a bit here, but that's so that when the faceplate finally comes off, it doesn't fall on the floor. Now, there we go. Lost all of them. But you'll see now that we can fold our handlebar down, and when I pick up those all those bolts, we'll be able to screw it back in for safekeeping of the bolts. Okay, that concludes what I was hoping to cover with the video. Just a reminder to have the info sheet with you when you do this job yourself, and I look forward to seeing you on Cycle Queensland.